What's going on, guys, and welcome to my AEW Collision audio review for October 7, 2023. I am Graham G.S. Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well and having a great weekend so far. Obviously, this aired opposite of WWE Fastlane on Saturday night, which is why they bumped it up an hour early to 7 p.m. Eastern Time. The second hour still aired opposite of the pay-per-view, but at least they got the first hour in there, and it was a pretty good first hour. They did the right thing by putting on the tag team title change, the surprise tag team title change, on in the first matchup so everyone can see it, as well as the Bryan Danielson Kyle Fletcher match, but not giving everything away, so people still tuned into the Adam Copeland appearance at the end of the show. It wasn't as eventful as the Wednesday promo and the confrontation with Christian. This kind of ended the same way. Similarly, we'll talk about it. I thought this was a well-structured show. The second hour wasn't really worth tuning into beyond the Adam Copeland appearance, but I thought it was a good show overall. Fastlane was an enjoyable show. If you watched that over Collision, was probably the better bet. I thought that was just the better show, but that was a pay-per-view. It's, obviously there's no real comparison there. But I enjoyed the show for what it was, and it's going to be interesting going forward, and I said this in my written review of the show over at WrestleRant.com. Check it out, cheap plug. If they're going to have more exclusive storylines for the show going forward, or if it's going to continue to be coming out of WrestleDream, an extension of Dynamite and Rampage. I really hope it's the former. I've enjoyed in the last couple of months that Collision has had its own storylines, superstars, and more emphasis on the matches, which we've seen on Dynamite, and not Rampage is just a lost cause at this point. Dynamite is hit or miss in terms of the matches. It kind of feels like we have one great match and other stuff kind of gets lost in the shuffle. Early on in the days of Collision, and I say early on, it was only fucking 4 months ago, we had a lot more emphasis on the wrestling compared to Dynamite with the hour-long tag team match, which you would never see on Dynamite. We really haven't gotten that in the last couple of weeks, at least since CM Punk left, and I'm not saying he was the only reason. He was the biggest proponent of that, and that was the reason why we got all these great matches on the show. Collision has still been a solid show, but this episode in particular didn't really feel overly eventful in terms of being its own episode in a nutshell, if that makes sense. And maybe the reason is, they knew that they'd be airing opposite of the pay-per-view of Fastlane, and they knew it wouldn't really be like the most eventful episode, because they already had Dynamite on Wednesday, which was kind of eventful, being the anniversary episode, and they had Title Tuesday. They didn't really want to give much away, and they knew they would get completely shellacked in the ratings due to the pay-per-view also airing that night. So maybe that's why. Because the ratings for the last show, I don't remember for Payback, for SummerSlam, and they had a real World Championship match on that show, quote-unquote, with CM Punk and Ricky Starks, and that was a great match, and it was actually a very good show. The ratings were like in the 300,000s, airing opposite of SummerSlam. Now, granted, that was SummerSlam, not Payback or Fastlane. I am very curious to see, specifically now at the 7 p.m. start time for this one episode, what that's going to look like in the ratings come Sunday or Monday or whatever it might be. Well, let's get right into it here. Like I mentioned earlier, we had a surprise tag team title change on the show. FTR coming into the show, AEW World Tag Team Champions, leaving no longer the tag team champions. But it wasn't one of the usual suspects beating them for those belts. And FTR have had a lot of great matches in the last 6 months where I thought they might lose the titles, whether it be to the Bucks at Allin, whether it be to Jay White and Juice Robinson on Collision a number of months ago, whether it was to Aussie Open at the pay-per-view last Sunday, which I didn't think Aussie Open were winning, but I also didn't think Ricky Starks and Big Bill were winning the belts either. Ricky Starks has had a sustained singles push for a number of months now between the matches with CM Punk and Bryan Danielson. I like this and I don't like this. A couple things I liked about this. One, Ricky Starks finally has gold, and we're not really counting the FTW title. That's a fucking pointless championship. A real, actual AEW sanctioned championship. That part I like. The second part I like. Also, Big Bill's got gold, and I like Big Bill as well. The second part is that the way they booked this was great. They completely demolished FTR, decimated them, kind of strategically took them apart, taking out Dax Harwood at ringside. I think it was Dax they took out at ringside, and they pinned Cash Wheeler in the ring. It might have been, the roles might have been reversed there. I don't remember exactly, but still, they took their time in taking them apart. This wasn't some competitive, hard-fought pay-per-view match, kind of like what we saw from Aussie Open and FTR last Sunday. This was just a straight-up squash, but not in the sense where it made FTR look like babies. Like, they went in there and had a plan, but they were taken out beforehand. It was basically a 2-on-1 handicap match at a certain point, and they couldn't overcome Ricky Starks and Big Bill. I like that part of it too. What I don't like about this is that it takes Ricky away from the singles competition, seemingly. And if it doesn't, and he's back to doing singles stuff, which is great, it then takes away from the tag team titles. which brings me to my next point. They're not a real team. Starks and Big Bill have had a handful of tag team matches in the last couple of months since they joined forces, but they're not. I mean, I guess I would take this over another Bucks reign right now, because they are the number one contenders, kind of. They have a reign, or rather a title shot at any time of their choosing. It's basically like a Money in the Bank cash-in. I don't know if they could just come right out anytime, anywhere, and just say, hey, we're getting your tag team title shot right now. Again, like a Money in the Bank cash-in. Or if they have to announce it for a certain show, like Full Gear, which is probably where that's headed, because they'll be in California for that show. We'll probably get Starks and Big Bill against the Bucks on that show. It saves FTR and the Bucks for another time. I didn't really think we needed a fourth installment in that storyline. Coming off of their great match at Allin, that was won by FTR. So I don't know if this has anything to do with the Cash Wheeler, getting arrested stuff from a couple of months ago. That was kind of the conclusion that some people jumped to on social media. It might. I'm not saying it doesn't. That wasn't my first thought, but it's very possible, because why else would they do this? I mean, again, it came across as a complete shock, and that was probably the point. They've done this before with, a Saturday show that wasn't normally in its typical time slot, when Brody Lee actually beat Cody Rhodes for the TNT Championship. I was not expecting that. And that was not your typical... Was that Dynamite on Saturday? I don't think they had Rampage back then. It was a Dynamite on a Saturday. And Brody Lee won the championship. This kind of reminded me of that. So we'll see where it goes. I mean, I'm glad, like I said, that Ricky and Big Bill have belts. They're a good team. I love Ricky Starks. He's getting more television time. What does this really do for the division? Was also kind of the question I was asking myself after Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso became champions at the pay-per-view last night, which I didn't hate initially, but then I'm like, well, if Damian Priest isn't cashing in tonight or Monday, I mean, he might still cash in on Monday's Raw, we don't know. But I'm thinking, okay, they lost the belts to Finn Balor and Priest, who aren't the most true tag team either. They're more of a faction than they are partners. But still, Cody and Jay are two random fucking people holding tag team titles, and I hate when they do that shit because it takes away from the tag team division. I know that's WWE stuff, this is a Collision review, but I'm just saying, Starks and Bill, if they can have a solid tag team title reign and work with a lot of tag teams and not just be two singles guys holding the belts for no real reason, then I'm all for it. Like Paige and Omega 3-4 years ago when they were tag team champions. They're two singles guys, but they went in there and had a real tag team run with a lot of great matches and one of the best title runs this company's ever had. So we'll see where this goes. But I thought it was a cool, shocking way to kick off the show, if nothing else. We had Bryan Danielson one-on-one with Kyle Fletcher of Aussie Open. As we saw on Dynamite, Mark Davis is currently out injured after suffering, I think, a wrist injury during the FTR tag team match at WrestleDream. So Fletcher's going at it alone right now. No stranger to singles competition is Fletcher. He was on his own earlier this year after Mark Davis got hurt late last year. And that was, I think, before they officially signed. It might have been after they signed, I don't remember. But Fletcher was in a lot of singles matches on Ring of Honor TV, on AEW TV. He actually challenged Orange Cassidy at one point for the AEW International Championship in a great match. So he's quite talented. He felt like just another guy in that tag team match on Wednesday with Omega and Jericho and Takeshita. I mean, he's great, but the story wasn't really with him. You kind of figured he was taking the loss there. But I thought this was more of a spotlight on him. It was a singles match. They got plenty of time, almost 15, 16 minutes. And they had an awesome match. Fletcher went in there and had a great showing. Danielson works well with pretty much everyone. And I'm just appreciating the fact that we're getting more of Danielson on his own, having matches, working with the most random people on the roster. A lot like when he first showed up 2 years ago in AEW, because he will not be full-time on the show come next year, most likely. He will very likely be transitioning into a part-time role, and we might not even see him on every pay-per-view. He might be just working the occasional one-off show. He might not even be under contract. We have no idea. So they have to make the most of Danielson while they have him working on TV with all these random people, including Fletcher, a match I didn't know I wanted to see until after it happened. And it was a great match. I mean, there wasn't really anything storyline significant about it. And AEW also typically has this issue of having amazing matches. They don't really mean anything. But it gets Danielson back in the win column. Actually, he won at WrestleDream, but it kind of gave him a warm-up win. And he was never losing this match, but he will be challenging Swerve Strickland on Tuesday. If he can beat Swerve, the winner of that match will challenge for the AEW TNT Championship next Saturday on Collision. I'm surprised they're giving it away that quickly. That was the other announcement they made on the show. So it's either Danielson or Swerve, and you can't go wrong with either one. I'm getting the feeling it's going to be Danielson. Maybe Swerve cost Danielson the win after he gets pissed that Danielson beat him on Wednesday or Tuesday, rather. A lot of different directions they can go there. But that TNT title match happens next week here in Collision. We have Bullet Club Gold in action. Just Juice Robinson and the Guns, no Jay White. Taking on and defeating the trio of Metalik, Angelico, and Gravity. Solid showcase for them. We heard from Jay White in an extended promo afterward, responding to MJF from Wednesday and talking about their championship match and why he'll win the championship for real. He had the belt here, but obviously he's not the champion. He just stole the belt on Wednesday. Pretty basic stuff here, but the more I see of Bullet Club Gold, the more I dig the group. I already like the group, and I already was a big fan of Jay White. As you probably know from my reviews and stuff, I was never the biggest fan of Juice Robinson or the Guns. The Guns I just didn't think were that great, and they're not amazing, but I do think they work well in this role as part of being a faction, and they have great chemistry together. Juice Robinson was always a good worker, but not that he lacked personality, because he always was a pretty eccentric guy, but he was always just fucking boring to me, or annoying. I mean, I guess he's annoying in this role, but in the right way, in my opinion. And it just works so well with the Guns and the way, like, they film the entrance with him, like, bounce. I mean, it's hard to describe, but, like, he's bouncing up and down like a video game character when they do the turnaround on them during the entrance. I don't know. For whatever reason, I just really like that. And I think they found a great thing here with Bullet Club Gold. And, yeah, they're leeching off the Bullet Club Gold name. Do they really need to be called that? No. But still, I think the faction's been great, and I would not be opposed to Jay White beating MJF for that AEW World Championship come Wrestle Dream, come Full Gear next month. I think that'd be totally fine. I'd be definitely down for that. The AEW World Trios Championships were on the line here again. They were defended on Wednesday's Dynamite against, I think, the Butcher, Blade, and Kip Sabian, maybe. Again here in another random match with no real announcement or setup or fanfare. It was just a random six-man. They took on the Iron Savages, Bronson Boulder, and Jack Jameson. 3 job guys we typically see here on the show. The Iron Savages got a match with the Acclaimed, I think it was, a number of weeks ago. It might have been a couple of months ago when Billy Gunn was still out before he reunited with the Acclaimed. And I think that was the match where one of the members of Iron Savages did the whole eating ass thing, which I think is just so fucking dumb. This had your typical, usual, stupid shenanigans. I don't know. I like the Acclaim, but like the whole eating ass thing and the scissoring shit, I mean, I guess it appeals to a certain audience, and they're over. I mean, I don't hate the fact that they're over. But like the Iron Savages are impossible to take seriously. They're a good team in the ring, but like the character shit, which I guess is what they were lacking previously, whatever this shit is not for me. I think it's fucking stupid. And it doesn't really work well with the Acclaimed and Billy Gunn. It just feels like sports entertainment nonsense. And obviously we see a lot of that in WWE. But nothing ever this dumb, obviously, because it's not appropriate for the WWE PG rating. But doesn't mean, just because you can do it with the rating they have on the show, doesn't mean you should do it. Again, if you get the occasional bathroom humor laugh out of people, that's fine. But they do this shit in every fucking match they have. Do the Iron Savages and the Acclaim. I just think it's dumb. And there's also no reason for the belts to be on the line here, because what the fuck did Iron Savages do to earn an opportunity at the titles? I guess that just makes this another open challenge, which AEW has way too much of, but this was whatever. Timeless Toni Storm back in action on the show after beating Sky Blue on Wednesday. She took on and beat Kiera Hogan here. Fine match that people will love for other reasons beyond really the wrestling itself, and if you watch the match, you know what I'm talking about. The crowd was into that stuff. But the bigger takeaway here is that they're featuring and focusing on Toni Storm. She is great. She's outside of the title picture right now. She already lost to Saraya. Maybe we'll get a rematch from them. There's no real reason for it, though, because Saraya already beat her, I think, clean. But still, I think this could lead to, there's 2 titles in that division. This could lead to her facing and probably beating Chris Statlander for that TBS championship, which I would not be opposed to. We've already seen 2 title runs from Toni in AEW, but this character is great. But I also don't think this character needs a championship right now, at least not for a while. She's going off the deep end. The character stuff is awesome. She's still great in the ring. It's kind of reflected in her matches. She came out here with a match script that she was giving out to the commentary team and the audience and stuff. Just fucking great stuff. I think the whole Timeless Toni Storm stuff is just really entertaining. And I'm glad to see her getting consistent TV time, which it didn't really feel like she was getting as the women's champion either run. She was on TV a handful of times, but she wasn't really focused on it. No one really cared because the Outcast stuff sucked. This is the best Toni Storm I think has ever been. And then I'm including her WWE run. I didn't watch her indie stuff, but you know, the time that she spent in NXT UK, NXT, main roster, AEW, this is the most invested I have been in the Toni Storm character, probably ever. We had a Ring of Honor World Championship match on the show, so the Ring of Honor influence continues. Tony Khan said at a certain point earlier this year, going into the new year, coming out of Final Battle, you will not see as much Ring of Honor stuff on AEW TV. He has completely gone back on that in the last couple of months between defenses of the TV title, the tag titles, obviously, the world title, the pure title on these shows. The only championship, the 6-man titles, the only title that doesn't seem to get a lot of love on AEW TV is the fucking Ring of Honor Women's World title. And that's the best one of the bunch. in the sense that Athena's doing amazing work and it's being tucked away on Ring of Honor TV that no one gives a shit enough to watch because the show itself is a complete waste of time most of the time because we don't get Eddie Kingston on Ring of Honor TV. There was no build for this. Komander or Komander, whatever his name is, won that 4-way on Rampage to earn the opportunity. You knew he was not winning. But none of this was ever really mentioned on Ring of Honor TV at all. Like, what's the point of even having Ring of Honor TV if the World Championship won't be defended on the show or talked about or focused on or whatever? But anyway, I thought it was a good match. Like I said, Komander was never winning the championship. I thought he went in there and had a good showing. He's the biggest enhancement talent in AEW, or at least he was at a certain point, because he was always on TV for 6 months and never winning shit. He was always losing to everyone. So at least he won a match to earn this opportunity. Well, they had a good match. I can't complain about getting more Eddie Kingston. The guy's great. So it served its purpose in that way. And then just like that, we were already at the main event segment with Adam Copeland calling out Christian. And what was, I liked the segment on Wednesday. What was weird about it was that Adam never really took exception to any of Christian's behavior in the last year. Like, he just wanted to reunite with him. He was like, oh, the whole reason why I came here, which is a shoot, by the way, is to reunite with Christian, among other things, but that was the leading reason for sure. He wants to end his run in wrestling with Christian, which makes sense and is cool. But he never really said anything about Christian's behavior in the last year. I mean, the whole Jungle Boy stuff, calling out people's dads for being dead and whatever, just being a fucking asshole and being the biggest heel in the company. He didn't really seem to mind. That didn't really bother him. Like, he didn't mention any of that, which was weird. He did hear. He did. He goes, oh, yeah, I've called him a lot in the last year, and he's gradually not accepting my calls, which wasn't really much of a surprise because he was already a dick. He always has been, blah, blah, blah. And you would think that the typical story, aside from just wanting to reunite right away, would be to bring Christian to the light. Maybe he thinks he could do that by reuniting with him, but that should be the main focus here. What's weird is that they kind of planted the seed of, like, maybe Luchasaurus and Nick Wayne are manipulating Christian, which is actually the other way around. They've been manipulated by him. You would think they would break away from him and not the other way around. So, like, a Luchasaurus and Nick Wayne tag team to me doesn't really seem overly interesting or intimidating. These two just lack chemistry. When they came out there to attack Edge here, or Adam Copeland, excuse me, it's going to take a while to get used to that. When they came out here to attack Copeland, it just looked fucking goofy. I mean, maybe Nick Wayne gets over it in a Dominic Mysterio way. I thought he was doing fine as a babyface. He never won shit. But I thought he worked well in an underdog role. Maybe it's just because they have a million of those type of wrestlers. That's why it wasn't really working with Wayne. But this guy's a little shit. And that's probably why it works with him in this heel role. But I just don't see it getting over at a meaningful level like with Dominic, where he had a great feud with his father and he won the North American Championship. I don't really see that for Nick Wayne right now. The guy's a good worker, especially for an 18, 19-year-old. I think he's just 18, actually. But seeing him out there attacking Edge was just, like, fucking laughable. But that brings me to my next point. They came out here, interrupted him, were about to attack before Darby Allin made the save, and he too was outnumbered by Luchasaurus and Nick Wayne. And Nick Wayne, I think, hit Darby with a concerto to Darby's arm. Every time I think they're writing out Darby, he just keeps coming back. Because I know he's about to climb Mount Everest or train for it or something, so you would think he's taking time off. Apparently not right now. Sting didn't bother showing up to make the save. I guess he was off tonight in whatever city they were in. But yeah, this clearly sets up a tag team match, maybe for Full Gear with Copeland and Darby against Nick Wayne and Luchasaurus. I hope they hold off on Christian and Copeland for another time. Copeland did call out Christian, and Christian he said he would get his answer on Wednesday's Dynamite, or titled Tuesday Dynamite. I don't know if he was talking about for a match or for, like, another reunion. I forgot what he was responding to exactly. But we'll get another answer from Christian on Tuesday. Copeland was already wrestling on Title Tuesday. They already announced that at the press scrum a week ago after WrestleDream. It's going to be Copeland against Luchasaurus and Copeland's in-ring debut for AEW. So that's going to be a big match. And I'm looking forward to it. I thought this was a good angle, though. They put more heat on the heels after they were kind of bested by Copeland at the pay-per-view, and then Copeland wasn't physically attacked on Dynamite on Wednesday, but they did here, and Luchasaurus needed the heat to make it look like he's a threat, at least somewhat, to Copeland come that match on Tuesday. So I thought they went off the air in a good way with this show, and the way they booked that angle. Overall, though, I thought it was a good show. The second hour kind of died out for me, even with a Ring of Honor World Championship match I didn't really give a shit about. The trios title stuff was just a waste of time. The Toni Storm stuff I like a lot, so the second hour wasn't a complete wash. The first hour was stronger. They kicked it off strong with the tag team title change and the great Bryan Danielson Kyle Fletcher match. Kind of a mixed bag of a show, more good than bad. Definitely not their strongest effort, but again, they knew they were going to get shellacked in the ratings with Fastlane also airing last night, so I can't blame them too much. We'll see if they can kind of get back on track with Collision next week, and I guarantee you it's going to be a show worth watching for that TNT title match alone, regardless of who faces Christian. It's either Christian against Swerve or Christian against Bryan Danielson, and you can't go wrong with either match. I'm looking forward to both. But thank you guys for checking out my review of Collision from last night. Be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more daily content. Have an awesome one, guys. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.